When I was a kid, I loved anything space related. Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, watching space related documents on the History Channel, and even spending my computer time in elementary school listening to ebooks about space and Mayan, if anyone knows that. Needless to say, I still do love space and sci-fi related things. So when they introduced the gravity vortex in the finals, I was excited to use it. And it was alright. Hi, I'm Gooby, and I'm here to talk about the gravity vortex. Unlike the rest of my videos, I actually do think the Vortex is really close to becoming an amazing gadget. Someone who's new to using Gravity Vortex will look at it and try to use it as a typical trap, placing them at windows and doors and expecting to get a guaranteed kill. And while that can work, you can honestly do a lot more with the Vortex than just that. I believe the Vortex in the right hands can be pretty useful in a lot of situations. Let's look into its stats first. Just like every throwable trap gadget, you can detonate it whenever you want to, as long as the actual device isn't taken down. The gravity vortex has a cooldown of 20 seconds, and it shows a particle swirl that both you and your teammates can see to indicate that it's ready to use. Please note that the enemy cannot see this swirl, so please don't be afraid to just throw it in there in the heat of battle. Take this part with a pinch of salt, but from my estimate, the vortex has an initial range of 6 meters. This initial pull is when the vortex is at its strongest, although this only lasts for 1 second as it then shortens down to 4 meters and has a weaker pull to allow anyone stuck inside to brute force themselves out. There really isn't much of a balancing history with the vortex, but one of the most notable changes it saw was at the beginning of Season 6 where Embark did a major rework to help the gravity vortex. While it did help the vortex itself get stronger by making it last longer, it did hurt the vortex device itself. More on that later. Let's talk about the untapped potential of this gadget. I believe something not enough people talk about is just how effective this gadget is as an area denial tool. Using this in enclosed areas like the inside of buildings, small hallways, narrow paths like Bridge, or in between buildings like maps such as Monaco, Peace Center, or Skyway Stadium, this gadget thrives in close quarter maps. Other things you can look out for are built-in jump pads. Almost every map has built-in jump pads that are extremely important to use if you want to get from point A to point B. You can take advantage of this by placing the gravity vortex near one, and at best get a free kill, and at worst, more stall. Both extremely important when defending. Any good finals player will always take advantage of the abundance of canisters and barrels. While nukes are a thing of the past, the vortex device can be used with barrels to create a pseudo nuke. Since you can't really throw barrels far if anything is attached to it, that includes the vortex, what you're going to want to do is dash then throw in order to throw the barrels farther. The best barrels you want to look out for are either glitch barrels, fire barrels, or gas barrels. Glitch barrel is the best barrel since the greatest weakness to vortex is the fact that anyone stuck in the vortex can still use their gadgets and specializations, meaning heavy can use their mesh and dome shield, mediums can use heal beams, and light can use both glitch grenades and healing infuser. Glitch barrel disables all of that, making them actual sitting ducks. Fire barrels are also a really good choice since fire does a lot more damage than gas, but you can also shoot the fire barrel itself, which will cause it to explode, doing even more damage. And finally, gas canisters are pretty good since it also does a decent amount of damage. Smoke canisters are okay if you can't find either of the first three, since smoke canisters hide the vortex, which allows a more sneaky pull. Goo is inconsistent, and heal ball, why would you want to use that? One of the strongest parts of Vortex is its Cashout manipulation ability. Cashout manipulation means to move the cashout from its original position. This can be as simple as shoving it to its side, or something grand like using goo pad to push the cashout far. Or at least, that's a simplified version of cashout manipulation. Well anyways, Vortex is one of the few ways the light class can accomplish cashout manipulation by themselves. When using the Vortex, never place it on the cashout, but instead around it. So whenever someone does go for the steal, the Vortex pulls the cashout away from it with its initial pull. Another way to use Vortex with the cashout is to use it as a pseudo winch by pulling it to a different position. It's not as effective as winch, but sometimes even a little push can go a far way. One of the best scenarios is moving platforms. Since the Vortex stays wherever it was activated, that includes staying in mid-air, which means if you activate it on a moving platform out of bounds, that's 10 seconds of guaranteed defense with the Cashout just midair. It is amazing. One last thing that I have to share is using Vortex with Gateway. Oh my god, I didn't expect to have this much fun with these two. One thing you can do is use Vortex as a trap, placing it down at least 2 meters away from the Vortex, so you can ensure whoever uses your Vortex, whoever uses your gateway, will be caught by the initial pull of Vortex, pulling them away from the gateway, keeping them stuck. Another really cool but extremely niche trick I found out that not many people know about is this. You can create a temporary area in the sky with Vortex and Gateway. What you want to do is throw the Vortex underneath the Gateway and try to activate it as fast as possible. To be honest, it's not that great alone, but if you have a medium running CL40 or a heavy running MGL, this can honestly be a really fun way to get unexpected angles. Despite me showing you some interesting ways that I found to use Vortex and glazing it, people think it's useless, if not underwhelming. Why is that? Well, one complaint I see is that it feels slow to use in the heat of battle, and to be honest, yeah, I can see that. Compared to almost every other gadget on Light besides Breach Charge, it feels really slow. When escaping from someone, I will always prefer using a nullifier or underhand throw with a grenade or a goo grenade. Another complaint I hear from others is that when it comes to Cashout manipulation, people prefer the high destruction and gas clearing power of Thermal Bore, and the high abundance of Breach Charge and the decent amount of damage they can do. Not only that, but the Vortex can sometimes help the enemy steal by picking up small rubble and pulling it over the enemy to provide cover. It doesn't happen often. If anything, it's a rare situation, but still, that helps expose the real problem with Vortex. It's inconsistent. I felt like the Vortex end spin wasn't strong enough. It felt like sometimes the initial pull wasn't strong enough either. It just feels inconsistent and clunky to use. Also, remember when I said the rework helped but also hurt it? Yeah, so one of the changes Embark did to quote-unquote keep it fair was to change its throwing velocity and gravity modifier. I'm not gonna pretend to know what that means or what that does. All I know is that it basically nerfed its throwing distance by a lot. I'm talking 50% maximum throwing distance. Before the rework, one of the greatest things about Vortex is that you could throw like a grenade. I'm talking 29 meters reduced to 15 meters. Wow. I'm honestly still surprised that no one else cared that in the same rework where they wanted to help the Vortex was the same rework that annihilated one of its greatest strengths, being throwing distance. So what can we do to help the Vortex see more play? I have two solutions. In my opinion, the Vortex isn't chaotic enough. Make the Vortex 1 meter bigger on everything, its initial pull and the Vortex itself. Make the end spin of the Vortex move more violently and make it harder to get out of the Vortex, because I just feel like it's too easy to escape. When I imagine a Vortex, I imagine an unstoppable force that should feel threatening. But the current Vortex just feels like an inconvenience at best. And honestly, another good buff would be to revert the throw velocity and gravity modifier to what it used to be. I can't stress enough just how big of a nerf that was. It was honestly amazing, and now that it's gone, I feel like I took it for granted, because you can still feel that throwing distance nerf to this day. It's either that or, hear me out, we turn the gravity vortex into a grenade. I feel like turning the Vortex device into a grenade would honestly be really fun. It would turn it from a passive and more planning gadget to a more reactive gadget. Obviously, we shorten the Vortex duration by maybe 4 seconds and let it still have like some wind-up time. I generally think this would fit the light class more than it currently does. If we do make it into a grenade, we would definitely have to extend the cooldown by a lot. Currently it's 20. My idea would be to make it a whopping 30 to prevent Vortex spam. So yeah, that's the Vortex. One of the coolest gadgets to be added to the game, next to Gravity Cube. It honestly makes me sad how little you come across it, even in casual play. I feel like one of the biggest reasons why you don't really see it is because of the lack of understanding on how to use it and when to use it. And honestly, as someone who personally tried something and just didn't have a full understanding of how to use it properly, I can understand why people think like that. But what do you guys think? Do you guys like using it? What do you guys think about my rework ideas or buffs? I honestly really do want to talk about this gadget more because it's just so niche. I feel like people use this even less than tracking dart. And I think you guys know how I feel about the tracking dart. That's about it though. Bye bye.